It's time, America.
Mr. Jones owned a cotton plantation and many slaves. One day he was talking to the owner of the plantation next to his, and Mr. Jones was lamenting the fact that times were tough. He was having to work his slaves harder than ever, and was having trouble with some of them being disobedient or trying to run away.
We're back in the jungle and go get it because it was unaccounted funds.
How much money would be in a bag?
Well, a bag would probably have a couple $100,000 in it, depending on where you were going with it and who it was going to.
I was sitting up there on the director's staff, and that's where it all came together.
Which is what you want to do so that they don't take more of the income from themselves, thus reducing profits for the elites. So it's a perfectly sensible policy, a perfectly sensible approach, a devil's approach, but a perfectly sensible approach from the point of view of those at the top who are trying to stay there and who are trying to advance. Moreover, if they don't, they just get wiped out. So it's not even really an option. What you'd have to do is
The other plantation owner said he knew someone who could help.
Day one.
One day, Mr. Jones called his slaves together so a man named Mr. Smith could talk to them. Before beginning, Mr. Smith whispered to Mr. Jones,
For operations such as Laos, the CIA director's senior staff prepared the agency's official budget.
For Laos, I think it was around 30 million, perhaps 40 million, but it was very small.
Was that in fact enough to run this war?
Well, I don't think so.
to create a new kind of economy in which these situations and these conditions don't restrict our options. The corporate entity, corporate person, it's not really a person, but call it an entity, is it pathological? Answer yes. Why? Because it drives toward profit regardless of the broader implications. It doesn't matter if your drive toward profit induces
whatever I say, do not contradict me or interfere, and I promise you your slave troubles will end. My name is Mr. Smith, and this may be the happiest day of your lives. From today forward, you will no longer be slaves, but free men. Mr. Jones was so shocked he
I would think that the war was costing quite a bit. Probably, if all the costs were pulled together, I would imagine it would.
pain and suffering, promotes, generates black lung disease in a mine, or pollutes the environment, or literally destroys the society. It doesn't matter. You're forced by the nature of the social relations inside and among corporations, the market system, to pursue, to accumulate, to pursue profits.
He started to step forward, but Mr. Smith gestured for him to remain silent. He did, only because the other plantation owner had spoken so highly of Mr. Smith's skills. You are no longer property of Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith continued. You are free. No more will you be forced to labor for the benefit of Mr. Jones. Now you can work for yourselves. Now,
It would probably cost as much as the entire agency's budget.
How is the war in Laos financed?
U.S. appropriated funds.
Through which agency?
I think through the CIA and through the Defense Department, both.
A secret Pentagon report put the defense...
Hierarchy is the defining characteristic of scientific management. It should not be surprising that it was met with great praise, not only by the capitalist world.
slaves were all murmuring and looking at each other. Many were smiling, many were looking puzzled. In fact, you are now free to leave the plantation whenever you want, Mr. Smith said. However, since we are surrounded by other plantations, if you leave, some other plantation owner will likely claim you as his own the moment you set foot on his property. So I urge you not to risk your...
Department contribution to the war in Laos at $146 million in 1970. But the report also showed that the CIA was spending up to $60 million more than they were getting from Congress.
Well, there may have been other...
But by fascists and authoritarian communists. Mussolini set up a propaganda arm of his government to promote Taylorism, while Lenin wrote in Pravda in 1918 that we must introduce in Russia the study and the teaching of the Taylor system. And it's
found freedom by doing something so foolish. Instead, I suggest that you stay here, no longer as slaves, but as willing participants and part owners of this plantation. Yes, this is now your plantation. Mr. Jones bit his tongue. For now, we might as well leave Mr. Jones in charge, said Mr. Smith, since he...
funds generated by Vang Pao himself through his dope operations. After all, I mean, they were poppy growers and opium smugglers. So I imagine there was money being earned that way. That was
systematic trial and adaptation. As in America, workers in Russia were unimpressed with scientific management. A major contributing factor to the Kronstadt Rebellion of 1921 was the introduction of Taylor's techniques. Immediately after the rebellion was crushed, a government document on rationalization spoke of the instinctive mistrust.
He's the only one with any experience at running a plantation, which is quite a complicated thing to manage. But he will no longer be your master, but just another worker on the plantation. In fact, he will now be using his organizational and management skills to serve you. Whatever problems you may have had with him before, you are now all equals, and you need each other to make this work. If we all cooperate and work together, we can all reap the benefits together.
Vang Pao's contribution to the war.
Is it conceivable that the CIA would fight a war with dope money?
Well, yes, in the sense that they would not sell.
Of all workers toward all kinds of experiments directed at extracting greater productivity from them. Workers at Kronstadt had envisioned a decentralized system where they would actually own and control their own work and resources. But Lenin had something different in mind. Socialism, Lenin wrote, is merely state capital.
In honor of this happy occasion, I present you this new symbol of togetherness and cooperation, this flag, which shall be the emblem of the new Free Jones Plantation. He held up the new flag, but most of those listening were still too amazed to respond. And this shall be our motto.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Very